Welcome to Conversations today. Before I do anything, I want to take a swipe at NORML, the group which is trying to legalize marijuana. That's a cause which I heartily endorse, and I would love to do a show on it. And I tried calling NORML about 3 times, maybe more, left messages. They never got back to me. I hope it's not because I mentioned that I was gay and HIV positive, and, you know, I thought I should warn them a bit. But anyway, they never got back to me. And then, last week, they sent asking me money to contribute to their cause. So I would advise them to see which hand is washing which. Having done that, we'll move right along. Best friend is a word I never use because it's not a competition, but having said that, my guest today is someone who for the longest period of time has given me consistent good advice, affection, support, intelligent conversation, and all those things that go with making a good friend, and we've never fought, which somehow in there says something. Anyway, I'd like to introduce Joel Baird today, who has been on our show before, who has something to do with MCAT, has something to do with the Crystal Theater, who was my first guest on the show, and makes for a good reason to have you back.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Greg. That's very sweet.
Let's start with the Crystal Theater. That's a cause that's close to my heart, and I've supported it in every way possible every time I did things. What has happened in the years since?
Yeah, has it been a year? Golly, I guess
We did this show, it's over a year.
Yeah.
Because I saw Randy Chaney was in February, so it was in January we started.
So Conversations is a year and 3 months old.
Something like that.
Well, the Crystal Theater, since we last talked on TV, has undergone a pretty strong change because in December of 2000, an anonymous donor very generously offered to pay all of the outstanding debt of the theater. So that's about $18,000 cleared off the books, so that even though the Crystal equipment is somewhat old, it is serviceable. And even though you could call it junk, we own it. It's our junk now.
Thank you to whoever that anonymous donor is.
Yeah. And additionally, just last Friday, I received another grant from the Engelhardt Foundation, $6,500 to pay for a new sound system, which is something the place is sorely, sorely needed. But there's been other changes there, Greg, it's true. I mean, it's changed in the sense that I feel like a little bit it's starting to take on a life of its own beyond my input to it. And, you know, I work with Tam Armstrong, and making it into a nonprofit was our idea together. And I think it's taken on a life of its own through volunteers and board members. And I'm really pleased to see that, you know, because I don't want to be the keystone or the linchpin or the... And if anyone would like to be the president of a small nonprofit mini cinema, let's talk.
Many is the time I've heard you fuss and wish you could get out, and if there were any way to get out of this thing, and all of a sudden, now that there's some money, you sound like it's not such a bad idea.
Oh, to get out, yeah.
Well, getting out, but still, that it's not such a bad thing to be there.
Right, and it wouldn't be such a bad thing for people to get involved in. I think in the early days it was struggling really hard, and now I think we have kind of a sense that not only are we going to be able to provide the basic mission that we wanted, and that was the art cinema, and bringing films that were difficult to see to Missoula and allow people to see it in a group sort of situation, you know, rather than a home on video or DVD or through a satellite channel or something, but that we're going to add stuff. For instance, MCAT, my other hat, I work down here. I thought it'd be nice for work that's made at MCAT, shown on TV, to be shown before a live audience anyway, even if the image wasn't live.
Well, 4 of them some evenings.
Yeah, and so we're starting a program at the Crystal of showing MCAT work and the work of other independent producers. Christopher Lee, who had a benefit for his own video making at the Crystal some months ago, just brought me a tape because he'd heard about the program to show short films before the 7 o'clock show. So typically there'll be programs on about 6:40, 6:45, and they won't last much longer, of course, than 15, 20 minutes, but there'll be work from MCAT, current producers, and MCAT archives. I've been putting together compilation tapes, which gets pretty interesting. You know, a lot of public access centers like this one, they don't keep the tapes. They don't provide tapes to the producers. You know, the producers here get 10 tapes or whatever, often more, for whatever project they're working on. And that those tapes we keep in our tape library. So we have work now that's over 10 years old. I put together a compilation. I think I did something just about cats. And one of these shows had a kid who was just like 3 years old, running around with a camera, who's now 13, who I see, you know, riding his bike, doing skateboarding, stuff like that. So it's pretty wild to see the town. And I'm re-sponsoring. I don't think you ever knew Bill Dratz, who lived in Missoula. He moved to Seattle. He passed away in, oh boy, maybe 93, 94 of AIDS. He moved to Seattle for care there. And he died maybe a year after he moved there. But in any event, he did a series of work called Barefoot Video. And he did a lot of very casual video making that was kind of a portrait of Missoula. One of his interests was backyard activities. So he went to a lot of cookouts and potlucks and stuff, as long as he specialized, you know, for one area, he would do just backyards.
I thought I had that idea. Maybe I got it from you
I don't know.
But I like the idea of...
At any rate, I'm tapping the MCAT archive for that.
That's great.
Yeah. So I realize I've just laid out a whole bunch of stuff right there, but there is an MCAT archive shown at the Crystal. And there is an MCAT archive here that people could come down and look at, too, if they wanted to. You know, look through. We've got a little bit of organization of titles and contents. So if people in the community wanted to come down and look at stuff that's been made here over the last 10 years, they could do that and ask for it to be replayed. So this is just a little something I do. The spring, it makes me think of Bill because he did a lot of this video work in the spring when, well, you could go in backyards, of course, in the summer, too.
For those who have never been to Crystal, let's plug it again.
Oh, yeah, let's place
How you find it and
right.
what not to be afraid of.
Yeah. I think, you know, once people know where a facility is and where the facilities are within it, the bathrooms, then they feel, you know, I know where to go and I know where to go to the bathroom when I'm there.
Well, it used to be...
This more solid.
It used to be you just walked through a video store and walked straight back and you were in a theater, and now
there's a restaurant
that handles the overflow from the break upstairs and the bridge and that's okay. Anyway, it doesn't really look like you're going into a theater, so it's, if you walk in, it can be kind of confusing.
Right, but for the folks at home, New Crystal is located right across the street from the Missoulian building. So it's immediately on the south side of the Higgins Street Bridge. It's on the southwest side of the Higgins Street Bridge. And it's surrounded by a new bistro, Scotty's Table, Tipu's Tigers in the same lineup, Northwest Distributors, and that fly fishing place. Anyway, it's right about in the middle, and you would see the Bridge Restaurant maybe more. That's true. Then behind it is the little theater that's going to have the new sound system.
Also, you spend some money on getting a new
the video projector. Yeah, which makes not only this, you know, seeing MCAT work and local independent video makers work before the shows, it makes that possible, but it also makes possible a lot of other information sharing that groups might do. For instance, tonight, the people that do a science fiction convention in town, I think it's called MissCon or something like that, they're having a benefit. They're showing Blade Runner on DVD through this video projector. So it makes the space a lot more flexible for other groups that want to use it.
Which we should also bring up is, besides showing movies, you and Tam have a vision of the Crystal as something more than just a theater, and so groups can rent the space even on the busiest movie nights, and at hours when the films aren't showing, it's extremely cheap. In fact, it's been known to be free for the right causes. I said we never have fought, but that doesn't mean I haven't thought you were crazy from time to time. And one of those times is when you decided that all the seats in the theater should be taken up and made movable.
Oh, that's right. And you mentioned that in connection to our recent Oscar party.
Yes, I went to the Oscar party on Sunday, and it was set up with all these tables in different places with candles, and the seats were moved at different angles, and we had the video projector so the Oscars could be seen. It was quite an evening.
Yeah, and it looked pretty cool, didn't it?
Yes,
That's
it
the
looked
thing.
great, and the bar that I thought you were crazy for holding on to looked really good.
With the rattan top.
It took 2 years for it to really find its
They actually
place.
get used, yeah. That was a very generous donor who lived on the South Hills.
Yes.
Their name escapes me now, that donated that bar with the rattan top. It actually has a matching rattan sink that goes with it. But yeah, doesn't the space seem flexible?
It does.
So it's essentially like this one, only bigger, but it's a concrete box.
Put that out there, though, for those of you who were thinking about fundraisers and parties, et cetera, like that. You could pick a movie that you would like to show, and now that we have the projector, that movie could be shown, and it could be shown in a setting where you could decorate, and
Yeah, you could really change the space around.
you could probably be catered even, couldn't it?
Yeah, that's right,
Food
like
could
the
be brought
Bridge
in?
catered
Great.
Oscar party.
Okay, a little bit more of a plug for the Crystal. We got a few minutes. The kind of films that are shown. You know, with the Oscars recently, and Ong Lee and all the fuss about him, they did a list of his films, and The Ice Storm. I thought I saw The Ice Storm at the Crystal. You know.
Oh, you did, yeah.
He's now a big top name, and I saw him there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, in the way the Crystal has to accept, and it is hard for us, that we are like the starting point for the independent filmmaker. Because our audience is very specialized, because we keep the program moving so quickly, we wouldn't get a movie and keep it for 6 weeks. We get a movie and we keep it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks if it's doing amazingly well, because I guess we have kind of an appetite for change. And the audience for the theater being small enough, it gets exhausted. The potential audience gets exhausted pretty fast. So here you find out like the example of the Crouching Tigers playing at the Wilma, but they'll keep that movie for 2 months. Whereas the Ice Storm was even smaller appeal than Crouching Tiger. So it was like more appropriate maybe for the Crystal. Of course, we'd like to get these movies that make a great deal of money and have them for as long as we can, but of course it doesn't work that way, and that's why we rely so much on fundraising events, grants from foundations, donations and memberships in that way. But it is a way that the film industry has changed quite a bit, you know, in a number of respects. Like when you think of how many films would have been considered even 10 years ago as off mainstream, and that it wouldn't be shown in a major theater, and it certainly wouldn't be considered for Oscar as Best Picture, maybe Best Foreign Picture. And don't you think, I don't know if you have the same impression, but maybe it was me like growing up and watching the Oscars. I always thought the Best Foreign Film was the most exotic thing in the world. When they mentioned, you know, oh, this won the Best Foreign Film, it was all Greek to me.
Cannes was the one I got. The best foreign film at Cannes. That always impressed me.
And you thought it was all very exotic and stuff.
I want to go back to some of these movies, though. I saw there, I'm going to say it's one of my 10 favorite films, and I can't remember the name of it, but the Chinese female impersonators, who you watch their act, but it's also overlaid over all of the rise and fall of communism and the different goings through.
And I
the
can't
name of it?
remember
Okay, great. Let's suffice it to say that that's the kind of film that shows at the Crystal. Often versions of Shakespeare show there.
Yeah.
Gay films show there.
Yeah.
A lot, and for a long time before it became fashionable to have a gay in every movie, the Crystal was the only place to see movies that had a gay person in them.
The nature of that whole niche industry has changed remarkably when you think about it in the last 10 years or more. Let's say Sean and I did the first Gay and Lesbian Film Festival in Missoula in 1986 or something. I think it was through Lambda Alliance at the university. At that time, even on video, the films that we got for the film festival were these rare and difficult to obtain things. And the films that were made were also difficult to match up with a general audience, whether the general audience was gay or straight. I mean, general in terms of inclination to intellectualism or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, we'd get these films like Monica Trout or something, and people wouldn't understand them at all because they were all based on her vision of postmodernism or something like that. Or we'd get films that were of European concern or something along those lines. But then when you think of how much the niche market has changed, where Hollywood has responded to a gay lesbian interest in seeing the moving image, there are so many films where it's almost difficult to have a gay lesbian film festival along the same lines of, heck, we're just showing gay or lesbian films. That has no cachet anymore because they're so prevalent. And I don't know exactly, you know, what you can imagine what has happened to create that niche marketing. Or is it that the society has become so much more tolerant that you can bring other people into this, you know, as advocates or something like that? That straight people will go see gay films because, one, they want to show their support, and then you can have a whole sub-list of motivation beneath that. And that creates a larger audience, whereas because the society was less tolerant 15 years ago, you wouldn't get that spillover audience. There's something to reflect on. Maybe that's true, where only gay people went to see gay films, gay-identified films from 1912, when the motion picture started, to 1985 or something, and then this slow glacial change occurred, which put gay films in the mainstream of Hollywood production. So it's really hard to have a gay and lesbian film festival. The one that's conducted here is fairly marginal. It's almost something that's done because it's been done every year.
Local films also show there at the Crystal.
Yeah.
We have filmmakers from the university who rent the hall, show their work,
That's right.
that sort of thing.
We've had workshops through MCAT, and we've shown those workshops at the Crystal, you know, the products from those workshops. And we've had maybe, well, in 4 years, maybe we've had 9 bona fide local filmmakers show their work, which isn't bad considering the amount of activity in the town, you know.
Yeah.
It is something.
Let's move on to MCAT. It seems to me that you have a lot more, you seem to have a lot more authority or than you
Don't
did.
believe it. Oh,
Don't, all
no,
right,
no,
well, it just seems that way to
yeah,
people.
It probably just
You're buying
appears that
things, you're
way.
looking for changes of venue, etc.
Yes, yes.
They don't give those jobs to the janitor. Don't
There
even
is
have
no
it. I
janitor.
know.
I'm the janitor.
Actually, they do give those jobs to
yeah,
the janitor.
so they do.
It's you.
It's me.
Let's
Well,
talk about
yeah,
MCAT.
okay, we could talk about that. And I'm not really being modest, I don't think, in terms of that authority or whatever, because, you know, there's a board,
You're
and
always
there's a group.
modest, Dave.
Well,
Modest.
anyway, you know, we tend to work as a group, I think. But in any event, we do have some new programs that maybe we didn't have even when we talked last. One is the Media Assistant Grants Program for nonprofits. And so there is a little bit of a change there insofar as MCAT staff has, we've been able to offer 8 hours a week of our time to nonprofits to be their production people. Whereas in the past we'd say, well, you have to go through the training and do it yourself, or you have to find someone to volunteer or to pay to do the work for you. And this is partly because technology has changed. A lot of things that we had to do manually here, like the cable casting, is done automatically, and that frees up an enormous amount of time. You know, if you imagine sitting there, because we don't have half-hour shows, we have 10-minute shows or 20-minute shows or 35-minute shows. So that did take up an extraordinary amount of time where you're just tied. So with this extra time, we're able to offer to any nonprofit in town 8 hours of staff time to go on location within the city limits and shoot something for them. We've done a lot of kind of conventions, you know, that may have featured a keynote speaker that the nonprofit was really interested in spreading their message. Or we have done public service announcements for groups. So we build something from scratch, like the Humane Society. Or we have tried to come up with like a organizational profile for a nonprofit organization that they might use to attract more donors, volunteers, or to train people that are working with them.
What about this looking for a new home for MCAT?
Oh my gosh. Well, it does seem like we're pretty close to new quarters. What we're waiting to find out is how much it will cost. The way MCAT's cable casting works is that the mechanism to show the folks at home the program is located here in this building. The way it gets to their houses is by going to where the cable company is located. And that's all the way on 3rd Street. We're way over here on Spruce Street. It has to go a fair amount of distance, and it goes by a hand wire, a wire that is strung by the cable company. Not all the way there, but to a juncture. There's something called an iNet, and KUFM TV is on it, and all the other broadcasts, KPAX, KTMF, small details. Anyway, there's a way, you could think of it as like a little TV collar that rings around Missoula Village. And in order to get yourself back to Cable Central, you have to connect to this little TV collar. So if we move somewhere, we have to see how far away from TV collar we are and how much it would cost to get back connected. So that's what we're waiting on. The new space, I shouldn't even talk about it, Greg. Not to jinx it,
Yeah.
It looks very nice, though.
Well, I don't think anything...
Studio's bigger, and there would be bona fide rooms for edit suites.
But nothing is set in stone at this time.
Right, exactly.
It's still, but it's a possibility.
It's a strong
Money's floating around there that might be
We've saved the money for it.
held on to. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ed is out there in the booth asking, when do we get the new cameras that you've been promising forever?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's been a bit debate about the new cameras, sort of tied into, the cameras are here. They're in the office.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was kind of tied into that. Some on staff said, let's not set up these new cameras until we move. So there'll be that extra excitement, the new space, the new cameras. Also, we're not too certain about the roof still, although it's been very good, even though it's rained a little. It hasn't been our spring monsoon yet. So I think we'll know by tonight. And I think what's going to happen is the new cameras will come within a week. I'll probably set it up this weekend. So
Well, that's great.
yeah, so there could be a new look to MCAT Productions.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let's also take a bit of time about what MCAT can and do now that I've been doing a show for a year and see, I'm aware a lot more of how things work and what's possible. Basically, if you want to do a show that you have some faith in, you can come down, talk to someone here at MCAT, and somebody will train them, help them through it. If I wanted to do a show on winemaking, I could, right?
Yeah.
Or the right wing does, for lack of a better term, does a lot of religious shows here. I try to balance that a bit by a more liberal approach, but it really is what I'm saying. You may be liberal, but MCAT tries to be neutral, and so.
Right, exactly.
And
yeah, and I think fairly carefully so. I mean, in one sense, I'm a little interested in this move to see whether or not it would shake things up in terms of MCAT's usage. That if we were closer to a suburban area, then will more conservative people use the channel? You're right that conservatives use the channel often in the form of pre-recorded programming because it's available and mailed out. There's a network for that. And but I would like to see maybe more use by more different people, and I think by moving the facility around, the chances that you're going to affect more people with the facility are greater. But it's a tough consideration too, where the location is.
Well, you had a show called The Shane and Tyler Show, which was just a couple of kids with their friends kind of being goofy and sometimes doing takeoffs on movies and
that's right.
Doing gladiator things in the park and call-in shows and stuff. So it doesn't have to be high-flown. It doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't have to be much of anything.
It doesn't have to be anything, really. I mean, the basic mission of public access centers and their location is to try to reflect the location. It was designed or meant to be not only an opportunity, for people that live in the area to be able to use the cable network, but also to balance the cable network so that it wasn't made up of just programming from outside the community. So that it had some element of it that went with the community. So yeah, people that wanted to make a show could have an elaborate idea or a very simple idea. Somebody that has been scouring for an idea for a show really wants to do a radio show, and I said, well, maybe you should just take a picture of a still life and do a radio show to geraniums or something. Why not? I mean, the idea of most other media is to do broadcasting, and our idea is to do narrowcasting. So that if there's a show that's going to interest 2 people, that's good enough for us. I mean, we don't even check the interest level. Another good analogy for a public access center is a library that helps you create your own book.
Okay, Joe, I'm going to kind of stop you there
Okay?
because we have somebody coming, I guess,
Yeah, I
in a
was
few
wondering
minutes,
that.
and I want to talk about myself for a minute here.
Oh, very good.
Among all the things that you are to me, you're also kind of good luck. When we started Outspoken, Crystal did a little article on the Crystal Theater, and your picture and mine and a few other people were there just so that we'd have pictures in Outspoken. You went to the first gay and lesbian potluck I set up.
Oh, that's right. I've been to many more.
I was going to say, I don't think you've never been to another one, but you were there so you were there at the first one to show your support. Last year when this thing started, not only did you urge me to do it, you were the first guest. And so, for those of you who don't know, Outspoken was a paper publication which has had I think, a long and dignified life, but has died. And rather than for me to try to start it up with a different name and do it all over in paper, I thought, let's do it on the web. So, hopefully this show, if we do it right, will show Sunday night at 10 o'clock, and at that time, they'll see how to get onto the website when they can go to rural, as in out in the country, Rural Irony, IRONY, and then it's .homestead.com. And we'll check that, make sure that's right, and we'll put up a sign.
We'll put up a character generation.
Yeah,
sure.
You and I edit so that we can do that.
We can.
And have it ready, and then we can sit at 10 o'clock, or I can, and watch as the numbers come in, see if anybody actually watches the show at 10 o'clock on Sunday.
And hits your website.
And hits the website.
Are you going to offer prizes or anything, for the first 100?
The first 10 callers, no.
Oh, well, you should.
I would like to say a bit about the website, or about the magazine, let's put it this way. Ed, who was in the booth, when he thought it'd be fun to do a website for conversations, and he put a lot of time into it, a lot of effort, but we didn't finish it, and da-da-da-da-da. But now that we're doing Rural Irony as a magazine, and there's going to be advertising, then we have to be a lot more professional about things. So what we got is Rural Irony Incorporated, which is basically Ed and me, which runs conversations and now is going to run this magazine as well. And we'll be selling advertising. We'll be trying to get people in the community to write. The name Rural Irony to me kind of implies that it can, and especially because it's online, it can move across borders, and we can do articles from people in the backwoods of Colorado or whatever. So my hope is that it will be something that's definitely located strongly in Missoula, but that serves the state and then can kind of flow over into any other rural place in the country.
And you also mentioned you like the idea that people that lived in Missoula and then moved to other towns, cities, could still have a kind of Missoula presence or something, because they can easily write into the magazine.
Well, we got a thing called The Dear Departed, revisiting Mike Esposito, and he's written a column for me about what he's doing in Idaho.
Right.
I'm just thrilled with all the possibilities like that, because it means that when someone leaves the community, they don't have to leave the community. They can be part of it, they can help edit, they can actually have a job on the paper and be in Tulsa. And,
Right.
I'm thrilled with all of that kind of thing, so I really do hope people will take a look at that, at Rural Irony. Now that's about our time, isn't it?
I think so.
We can wind it up.
Really well.
I've been clock watching. So, MCAT,
Right.
doing well, but needs people to come along and actually use the surface.
Yeah. Yeah, and if we move, I think we'll really try to make people aware of where the new space is and what the services are.
Probably on this show, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And the Crystal Theater, go to the movies, give money, pop in and say hi, whatever. But it definitely is a service to the community, and I don't know, I can't imagine missing all the movies that I've seen at the Crystal.
Yeah.
Not having them in my life. So that's pretty neat. Keep watching Conversations and take a look at the new website.
We'll probably put it up again right now.
Yes, we will. We can do all kinds of things. Actually, Joel does most of the editing. I sit there and say, yeah, I kind of like that. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll have a big sign for the website.
Okay, Joel, thank you for being, again, my guest at a time when something new has started.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
So there,
Nice.
we did it in half an hour. It's 6
Yeah.
o'clock, you guys. I had it all planned.
You did have it all planned. I forgot you told me about how you were going to announce the website.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually had planned on the time, he's only got 5 minutes.
So we do have to
End it, yeah. Be sometime between now and Sunday.
Now, should I roll these cameras up or switch them immediately to use the studio?
Oh, you can roll them up because I really don't know what to do.